So welcome back guys. Let me guess, who is our next speaker? Is it Dr. Rana?
That's absolutely correct. Our next speaker is Dr. Rana Altunji. She is a senior lecturer head of MSc Business Program, and Dr. Rana holds a PhD in Islamic Finance and Banking from University of Kuala Lumpur, and she also holds a bachelor and master in accounting from Aleppo University.
Not only that, my partner, she also one of the associate qualification in Islamic Finance IBFIM and CPA Australia certificate in Digital Finance Ecosystem and Future of the Money. She is passionate about teaching as she has more than 11 years of teaching experience at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels.
We both greatly amazed to invite Dr. Rana Antonio to give us a talk on the topic Business Globalization Investment Outlook.
Hope everyone can hear me well. Let me just turn on my camera. Okay, so good afternoon to everyone, and it's really my pleasure to be with you here today. We're gonna talk about the topic of today. Let me share my screen first. I hope my screen is clear for everyone. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks a lot for all the organizers of this symposium today, and thanks a lot for the MC for this very nice introduction about myself. Today we're gonna talk in this very short presentation about the business globalization outlook. First of all, when we hear the word globalization, it always comes to our mind that it means we trade internationally. It means we go beyond our country borders, and actually that's somehow correct, but is not just that. So first of all, let's start with one quote of that Forrest Whitaker. He mentioned that we live in an age of globalization. Economies are ever more tightly connected with one another than ever before. And actually that's somehow 100% correct, because each one of us nowadays living that globalization live, whether we want or not. Who are attending today's event or this symposium, you are not all of you living in the one country. Some of you living overseas, some of you living maybe in Middle East, some of them in Southeast Asia or other part of the world. So this is one of the representation of the globalization that we are offering this talk or this service or this symposium cross-border. We don't care about border of a world, of a country. We are moving beyond that. And actually, this is the main point of globalization. Earlier ages, when maybe in my age or maybe older than that, when we talk about globalization, we only concern about trading products, okay? And before was kind of, yes, when we say any of our presenters or any of our speakers, when they say word globalization, they mean, okay, trading products, exporting, importing, and that's it. But with the current era, with the movement, everything that all the economy having, we are no more only talking about importing and exporting. We reach beyond that. So for that reason, even the definition of globalization has been changed. So if we talk about what does globalization mean, we can see that it's increase in flow of goods and services, capital, people, and ideas. So let's go one by one. When we talk about goods and services, no more globalization is only exporting and importing product. When we go to early ages, it was, yes, we import the products which we miss, we can't produce in our country. We export the things which we have a lot. Let's say if we're going to talk about my country, because I'm coming from Syria, so for us, exporting the olive oil, exporting the meat, exporting, there are some raw materials. It was our main source even of GDP in the country because we rely on exporting a lot. Also, our country, it was importer for a lot of produced products, okay, because the production line was not working that much well in all Asia. So we were also importing a lot of produced products. And even you yourself, you are facing that globalization daily. When you go to any mini market, supermarket, wherever you want to go, you're going to find some products are produced locally and some products are produced internationally. So those companies who produce those products are part of that globalization, even though those companies who service to you, which means who brought that product to you in this country, they're also part of the globalization. But when we talk about transforming things, or sorry, we call about transferring, not just about product, also we move towards services. So this is one of somehow, I would not say is new, it's already take long time, and it's happening for quite a long time, which is importing and exporting services. In a simple life, in our daily activities, we may need to call some customer services. Those customer services no need to be in the place where you are calling or the place where the country you are dealing with or contacting with is there. Those services or those customer service, they may be in another place. They are maybe in another country totally, another part of the world. So this is also part of exporting services, importing services. Not just like this, a lot of, due to the current era of internet, due to every one of us is using internet, so exporting and importing services is no more impossible. Some of you maybe now, like you want to promote yourself on social media, so you want, let's say, a designer, like for yourself, but you see that prices here are somehow expensive for your own personal use. So you may try to go to one of like very famous websites who are giving you freelance services. So you don't care that person living where, whether it's living in your same country or another country, all is same for you. So for this one, also part of globalizing in services. So no more globalization is only affecting big companies. It's even we, as a simple people living in the country, we are also affected by globalization. We are also using those services and products. When we move a little bit more talking about globalization, we have also the capital, moving the capital. Before, capital or money, it was only accessible during inside the country. We were always having that issue that I want to invest somewhere else, but I have a difficulty to reach there or send my money there, or even I bring investment from outside to inside the country or bring a capital. But with everything, all the improvement happened, even the capital become easy to access. Like I do believe some of you even can reach to buy some stocks in the capital market overseas. No need to be only in the local capital market. And even nowadays, with what we have, the NFTs, what we have about cryptocurrencies, what we have about digital currencies, moving the capital, it's no more has any border. It becomes borderless. So it become more globalized than ever. All of us, we know, a few years back, if you want to send a simple amount of money to somewhere else, you need, I think in your age, maybe most of you can do it online, or maybe can do it through Western Union, but also in your age, some of you may be experienced to send that through the peer-to-peer transactions. You send it through using your Bitcoin wallet, okay, or using your cryptocurrency wallet. So this also become the trend of the globalization, and it helped a lot to improve it and make it easy access to everyone, especially with the COVID-19 era, which all the world have been affected and all the movements have been affected badly with that, but later we're gonna notice that the services, the data has not been affected. Actually, it's improved a lot. To give you some about, okay, this is gonna to be the part 3 of globalization movement of data. Most of you, I do believe if you are MIU students or are other university students, or even if you are professionals, so most of you, you were working from home for the past 2 years. As a student, you were attending your classes for the past 2 years online. So this is part of movement of data. Those international students who were not able to come to the same country, because all of us, we know due to the pandemic, through the closing borders, that was part of the plan. We don't want you as a student to miss your study, even if you are living overseas. We can use that technology to make everyone access to how to give or grant an access to everyone for the data and the information. And this is part of the globalization. Every one of you can attend the classes, can do exam, can get marks. Even some of the students, they did their convocation online, okay? So this is also shows how globalization, it's really moving widely. We can't keep thinking about
globalization as a very limited thing, all things that, yeah, it's moving products, is importing and exporting, and what caused harming to the environment, what caused harming to people. We're going to talk about that. No, it's not just like this. Nowadays, it has a lot of benefit. So if we can see that here, when we are talking about globalization, we mentioned it's increase of flow. When we talk about flow, we sure talk about in and out flow. So is in and out flow for the goods for the data, especially nowadays with borderless banking, having borderless transactions due to the peer-to-peer transactions, which you can be anywhere, anytime, send money to anywhere, anytime, and this transaction approve in very short time, few seconds. And even in that transaction, some people, which they are totally in different place, they will be involved to approve, and transaction is done. So no more border for moving the capital, or no more border for any financial transaction anymore with the new era, okay? We talk about the ideas also and people. When we talk about people here, the example which I give, it was about outsourcing, and actually this was applicable since long time. And yes, it has the pros and cons. We're going to talk about it, but it's still issues. All of us, we know that we have high rate for salaries, okay? But still in those countries, they need to do this. They need to run some companies. Maybe they can't afford that rate for salaries. They still need to run. So the best way is to outsource from other countries and solve this problem. When I talk about ideas, the most common example is the things which every one of you use. I do believe, or I will not say I do believe, I'm 100% sure that each one of you now participating in ideas globalization. You're gonna ask me how? I will say, any one of you or every one of you have Facebook, right? You have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have TikTok, you have of social medias. So from this idea, you can understand how globalization is totally attached to you personally. It's not just about in the book. That globalization is importing and exporting product, and I have to understand how those shipping companies, they do their job, and how we can study the market, that we can decide which product to import, which product to export. It's not just like this.
You as a simple person living your life, enjoying with your friends, you go to dine in some restaurants, you post a story in your social media, you post a video on your TikTok, you're gonna to notice that some people overseas see your post and maybe will travel to Malaysia or visit Malaysia. They're gonna to go and visit the same restaurant where you have food and enjoy that experience. So this is part of globalizing the idea. Also, you as a student, you can communicate with whoever student you may need to learn from, or even you go to Coursera. All of you, I do believe, have access to Coursera. You go to Coursera and learn. So here, no more border for the idea or no more border for the knowledge. All of this is the globalization. In my coming slides, you're going to notice how globalization in data, in ideas, how it's been really boosting very high comparing to the globalization in importing and exporting products. Let's move more and see. Okay, if you see here, we have this chart which is showing us the globalization in the digital globalization. I know that the information is somehow outdated. It's in 2014, but actually I tried to find something very new, but was not easy to catch. But I put this slide because I want to show you something. If you of globalization for trading, which is importing and exporting, for finance, which is for the flow of the capital, and for the data, you're gonna to notice since 1980 to 2014, it was moving very high for the data, while for trade and finance were flattening. So here we can understand that the digital era is not something new. It started since long ages. If you can notice here, almost since 90s or thousands, like 2000s, it started to be very important. And actually, in very short time, have been moved very fast, okay? It really made a very strong movement in being important, or what we call it, having that flow very high among countries. So what is the, how the digital technologies changed the businesses and how the business is done? So when I was talking about the digital globalization, I talk about movement of data. So now we can also answer that question or understand more how those technologies really change the businesses. This flow of data, this globalization of data, how really affected to the businesses. So when we talk about large multinationals, okay, so how those businesses, they rule the ability to reach to customers or suppliers outside, they were really suffering. Okay, I will not say suffering that much. Maybe they can travel, but can you imagine how it differs? Before the data era, if you want to reach to any new supplier or customer, you need to travel, or even you need to send a mail. How much was difficult? Even it become like when we little bit improve, you need to send an email. And I do believe, you know, a few years back, people, they were not even opening their emails. And now you can directly reach to any company. You can directly through the website, you can directly to their mobile phone, through their WhatsApp, through their social media, and learn more about them and how you can really attract them as your customer. This is example. Another example, you want to promote a product. You need to study how people, they like, whether they like this product or no. All of us, we know now the industry of insights, industry of data. All of it is improved due to the flow of data. Every one of us face it or notice it. You open your, let's say you want to buy whatever it is, you just open your Lazada, you just search it, then close. You go open your computer, you're gonna notice that you start receiving advertisement for the same product that you were looking for 5 minutes ago. So here you're gonna just, maybe first time you will not notice it, second time you will notice it, and you just ask yourself, are they following me? Am I that much like very VVIP so they care about that, what I look for? Actually, yes. Because you are a prospective customer, you may be a customer. So a lot of companies, they paid for Facebook, they paid for Google, they paid for all those who have your own data, that please, when any of your users search for something, notify us directly, or don't notify us, no, because for the privacy of data, when any one of your customers look for something, directly promote our product to them, directly put our advertisement, and actually for that reason they pay. And maybe some of you even did it and try to promote some of your posts or social media things through that. So this is how the companies are working, from big companies to small companies, and this is the high scale of data flow is helping a lot. We're good about even startups. No startup working only for local customer. No. No more startup only local working for those nearby customers. No. More than 80% of tech-based startups are born globally for tech-based startup, and not only like this, even other companies which are not working in, they are not tech-based companies. I do believe maybe some of you during this pandemic try to find another source of money. So you find that you have some skills, you can design something, draw something, do whatever it is, service. So easily you just register your company and start promote your service. So you are a startup, and you maybe, if your service or product easier to transfer, so you're gonna to have international or worldwide customers, okay? And also, due to the data flow or globalization in data, it helps even to get financing. Crowdfunding, it's one of the digital finance processes or digital finance product that help a lot of startups to reach to a source of money. In our normal life, when we have any disaster or crisis, we do like tabung, okay? Me, I put 5 ringgit, you put 5 ringgit, 10 ringgit, blah, blah, blah. We gather this amount of money, we try to give school price. The crowdfunding somehow come with the same idea that I have a business, I want to run a business, but I don't have financing. I can't finance myself. And if I go to the bank and ask them, can I borrow money, please? They tell me, sorry, do you have anything you can put as guarantee that you're going to pay back? Do you have your financial statements for the previous years? Do you have any guarantor? Do you have any experience in running that business? And you're gonna just answer no, no, no. So do you think now you don't run your business? It's not like this. This was the idea of the crowdfunding, and was how the digital financing helped people, even those simple startups, to really run and be successful. We have a wide range of examples. The crowdfunding to support some singers. You're going to find a lot of examples. And yes, seriously, a lot of singers, they grow and they become famous because they started with the crowdfunding. They just said, okay, I want to record a song. I need the support of people. If everyone even give like few cents, I can gather, I can do my song, and you will have free access to it. And this one, it helped. So this is how this digital globalization, even those startups or even the SMEs. Because when we move from startup to SMEs, here we are talking about a company which is there, has number of staff, which is doing service or producing product, but is yet to be multinational or to be a large company. So even those SMEs, they get a lot of benefit, and it helped them a lot to reach to a lot of customers and suppliers overseas. And we can see here some numbers about Facebook, Alibaba, or Amazon, how those SMEs or even startups work on those platforms and how they reach a wide range of customers and suppliers. You yourself, when you go and you want to buy something, I will not say from a big page, I'm going to say you go to Lazada, as simple as that, okay? Or you go to Shopee. So you're going to see some of those who are supplying the product which you want to buy are living overseas. No need to be only in Malaysia, right? So like this, you're going to see, even if those who are in Malaysia, if you really track their address and you go to see them, you're going to see maybe they are a simple room in a very rare area. Those people, without this digital globalization, is never for them will be able to reach to wide range of customers or even reach to overseas customers. Also, we continue about the digital globalization, or how the digital technology helped the business or changed the business. We're gonna see, even as individuals, as you yourself, that you change the way you're introducing yourself, the way you're communicating with others, and all of this is due to the data flow and the globalization in that matter. We go a little bit for more charts and more information or more outlooks. We can see, again, we are comparing somehow with old dates, 1980s to 2014, and we're gonna to see how that during these 20 years, how the flow of goods and services have been declined. How is the percentage of it declined, or how it's affecting on the GDP? Okay, because we know all the countries caring about improving their GDP. So you're gonna to notice how the finance, services, and goods, they were participating in a percentage in the GDP of countries, and how this one been declined, because many countries moved to, caring about stop importing, caring about their own currency. They don't want to keep importing to keep their economy stronger. And when you stop importing, even exporting is not going to be easy unless if you improve your economy or you push your economy very strong, then you will be able to do further steps in those matters. So here we can see in this graph that how the finance, service, and goods percentage and the GDP have been declined, and this shift actually, or this declining, it doesn't mean that the effect of globalization declined on the GDP. Actually, it's do symbol shift from being concerning on product or service to concerning on data. Here it shows, or it's proof what I was saying when we talk about the shifts from concerning the effect of the GDP on the, what we call it, how the globalization of or flow of finance and products, how it's affecting the GDP, and how the data affecting the GDP. And here you're gonna to see how cross-border data is increased 45 times from 2005 to 2014. You're going to see how the things improved, and that what can justify why now most of countries moving to be tech savvy. They are moving to support that data transformation, support those all who are working in data field, support all those thinking about how we really can use that tech things, that technology to improve the country. And actually that we, even in the education field, will look for to produce graduates. They can be tech savvy. Those graduates who can, how I can say, who can really be able to produce something, who will be able to really cope with this era. No more graduates with only know how to write or answer exams. Now, answer exams, or even getting answers for questions is available in Google. Now we're looking for graduates who really can stand in the market where the competition, it's international competition, it's no more global, it's no more local competition. Even if, let's say, you are accounting graduate, you are business graduate, your knowledge, it's important. Yes, it's important to give you a pace for the things. But from the other side, it doesn't mean you are the only one have this knowledge. It doesn't mean you are the best, because when you want to say I'm the best, don't think about who are around you. Think internationally, because no more your competition is with those next to you. Now your competition, especially in the services field, with those who can really use the internet, who can really offer the service from overseas. So you need to compete with them. So for that reason, you have to keep that in your mind, and is part of the effect of the globalization on each and every one of us. Let's continue on talking about globalization during the COVID-19 era. We can see, like when we look for the global PMI, the new export orders in the indices from 2008 to 2020, you're gonna notice January 2020 and May 2020 how everything declined for the manufacturing and services, okay? All of us, especially in January 2020 when, in January 2020 when the lockdown started all over the world, when it was somehow new things, because if you remember, it was end of 2019 about COVID. In 2020 January, when things start growing very big and lockdown starts. So here, the first shock was entire the economy. I will not say collapse. I'm going to stay freeze, okay? Because any movement, because people don't know what will happen later. People don't know what will do, okay? So for that reason, most of it was a freeze. We continue talking about the economy and how COVID-19 affect the globalization. Sure, we need to talk about flights. Part of the globalization is flying or transportation. So when we talk about flights, here we are talking about transporting people. That industry hinted badly in 2020. If you can notice how this very heavy drop happened, so from like beginning of 2020, it was like fluctuating because some countries were not yet to follow the lockdown. Some countries was locking down. Some countries saying, no, we don't care about this COVID-19, and a lot of like ding dong in this story. Then out of sudden, phew, everything dropped. The flight industry or the tourism industry totally affected, badly affected, no more moving among countries. Most of the countries start closing their borders. They were worried about whether this virus will come to their country or not. And this stops, it affects a lot on the globalization itself. We continue also, we see about the merchandise exports, like very leading traders in April 2020. We're gonna see those some countries how really hit it very bad, you know. If you can see India, you can see Turkey, Mexico, Norway, a lot of those countries affected badly, you know, due to the COVID-19. You may still see here like, okay, China is, why is it still not in the negative, okay? I'm going to say here, there is a shift, okay, because of COVID-19. Most of us, we noticed, at first a few months, all the talks was about face masks, gloves, hand sanitizers. So you notice, like if you go in the deep details about the importing and exporting, you're going to notice most of the countries start concerning about importing those medical support products, importing those PPEs, importing the oxygen items, importing gloves, hand sanitizers, face masks. Even in that time, if you contact any of those companies producing this type of product, they will tell you, sorry, our product is sold for another 3-4 years. because all the customers were looking for this type of product, and that did a huge shift from specific type of product or from concerning about, let's say, mobile phones, laptops, other products which we consume in our daily life, to medical product, and how you can also notice the changes, okay, on concerning about invest in travel agencies, invest in airlines, to invest in medical companies. Before, most of people concerned about investing in airlines because we know airlines never lose. But we noticed during the COVID-19, people shift. A lot of airlines shut down. A lot of airlines stop their work. They start even kicking out their stuff, and they move to the medical producing companies. So here, when we want to more details about the shifting patterns in trade, during the COVID-19, we're going to see they mostly shift to the pharmaceutical products. The pandemic shows the limitation existing statistical tools in measuring the trade in goods related to combating COVID-19. And here also you notice, we talk about trade, we talk about globalization, we again concern about statistical tools. Statistical tools will be used for data. So again, we concern about it. You're going to notice also there was a huge shift to those environment-friendly products. When we talk about environment-friendly products, I'm going to give you some examples about renewable energy goods, how the world exports of wind turbines moved from 2000 to 2019. You're going to see how it's moved. And even after 2019, it's get also stronger and stronger. Solar energy powered good, because some scholars or those who talk about the effect, the reason behind COVID-19, the reason behind all this virus is because we are using dirty energy. We are using the fuel. We are using everything affecting in the environment. So we have to move to more friendly environment things. And this one make also a huge shift in the globalization and the consent. You're going to see also how the shifting in trades for the hybrid and electric cars also not started with the pandemic only, even before the pandemic, while from the other side, we can see that the travel, how it's been affected badly in between the 2 years, 2018 and 2019, especially end of 2019 when the pandemic started hitting everywhere. The question comes here, are the businesses really globalized enough? The answer comes from this, what we call a DHL Index Global Connectedness 2019 report, shows that business managers are living in their own bubble, which means the businesses actually didn't reach to the globalization level, which business owners think. So if you notice that about the trade, people or the business owners thinking about the 20% of, they are thinking that almost 40% of their trade is globalization, they reach the globalization level, but the reality is less. If you notice about the portfolio of equity stock is somehow close, but we can see a huge difference for the university students between what we really think it is and the reality. This shows to us that we have to work more to really reach to what we think the reality is. So the last part of my presentation today, when I'm talking about globalization, we see how the trends happening, how the globalization shift from an old school of only product and services to new school of data, thoughts, things, people. So, and we see how we compare between how the globalization, people, they think it's happening and how the reality it is. And we recommend that, yes, we need to be more globalized. But when we want to do that, we have to put some facts in our mind, okay? Those facts are, at first we start with the politics and laws. Globalization, it's, yes, is a borderless. You will be borderless for your product, for your ideas, for your services, but you need always to keep in mind this, it never erases the real borders among countries, okay? So borders among countries which cause different law, different school of thoughts, different thinking is never erased by this digitalization. You have access to it, but you can change it. So always keep in mind when, as a startup, as SME, as a company, as a person, you want to be globalized, you want to go more into open up, be borderless, you need to keep in mind that the law in different country, even sometimes in different state, is different. So you need always to bear in mind that you have. Second thing is the environment. All the school, all ages of the globalization, we were talking about transferring or exporting products and services. It was affecting badly on the environment, but that's what also was causing in some certain period of life that are people, they concerned that, okay, we don't want to import and export. Let's try to produce ourselves. Let's try to use a product which we have, and we don't need to import from outside. Let's reduce the effect on the environment. But from the other side, this thought also helped a lot in improve the renewable energy, those environment-friendly products, and how now all of us, we know that in many of the products you want to use, you always have another choice, which is more environmentally friendly. Try also to cope with that and try to make sure that you are not causing any harm for the environment, because even if your place is not, you will not be fined for it, but in another countries, maybe you will be fined, or maybe you will be taken out of the industry itself if you didn't do that. Also, another factor you need to consider about the macroeconomics, and to put in your mind how each country has its inflation rate, has its GDP, has its unemployment rate, has different income inequality, and how your participation in the globalization going to affect. The example I was giving about outsourcing of services, we can see that how some of these cons of the outsourcing of services is those countries, they have high unemployment rate because their salaries is already high. And most of the companies, they shift to outsource services from outside with cheaper rate. So for that reason, it caused some unemployment rate to increase in the country. The inflation rate also maybe affect your company or organization when you want to move, because we know instability, it causes to fluctuation in prices. Fluctuation in prices maybe cause inflation, which can also affect in your business. And actually, the exchange rate also affected, or it was one of the, it's not exactly the exchange rate, it's about the fluctuation in the rate. It caused a lot of people to stand against using of cryptocurrencies, which is one of examples of globalization. Because as example of Bitcoin, if any one of you following the prices, you're gonna to notice how it's jumping high, going down, then again jumping high. A simple announcement from any country that they are stopping, like all of us notice how China start stopping all those miners for the Bitcoin, how it caused a huge drop in the prices. Then some announcement from the other person, or like Elon Musk, he show up in his Twitter, put simple tweet, again prices jump up. So all of this fluctuation is also affecting on people acceptance for the globalization, and affecting on people who are participating in that globalization. Last two factors we need also to consider when we talk about the globalization, the human rights. As I mentioned earlier, we have in different countries, we have different law. So also for the human rights, we need always to consider what is maybe accepted in one country, it's prohibited in another country, is against the human rights in another country. So we need always to keep that in mind. And not only follow the law, also follow the ethics when you talk about human rights. You as a human, you need to keep always in mind, even if the law allow me to do so, it doesn't mean it's correct to do. It doesn't mean that my ethics is matching with that. We can't be against the law, but let's follow. It's gonna to be against the ethics, against the human rights. I should also take that in my mind. Also, the cultural differences and language barriers. These are the things which is now the flow of data, how the people nowadays in social media, the highest level of globalization in social media, cause to break that barrier, because easiest as like you can attend whatever conference in whatever language it is, and you have subtitle in your language as easy as that. So no more that barriers, especially if you are like into technology a lot, if you are into digitalizing the things. So it's going to be really helpful for you to break that barrier. So when we talk about, in my last slide, I'm going to talk about one of very famous symbol of globalization, which is retired, was a Boeing 747 jumbo jet. That type of flights was an icon of a globalized world because it was holding huge number of passengers. And when it started by Boeing, they were promoting it as the icon of globalization. But we can remember how in 2020 is being retired. This retiring showing to us that now globalization has different aspects, which means before the pandemic, before the data era, globalization is different than after the pandemic and after the the data era. So by this slide, I would finish my presentation, and for sure I would be more happy to keep in touch with all the attendees in case like you would like to further discuss about how globalization it may affect our life and our future perspective. So over to you, the MC.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rana, for your lovely speech.
Okay. Well, we'd like to inform you that please fill up the feedback form that we have posted in the chat box. And now feel free to ask questions, or you may post the question in the chat bar.
Is there anyone who would like to unmute your mic and talk? You may now.
Hi, Doctor. May I know, does the globalization help with the economy and get out of the debt?
Okay, actually it's somehow like a nice question, whether the globalization gonna to help the economy. Actually, it depends how you will use the globalization. One of the examples I was giving that some countries they're gonna to export and some countries gonna to import and some gonna to do a balance between import and export. So here it depends how the country is doing. Some countries, unfortunately, relied badly on the importing all the products. So they reached a level that they can't cover the cost of that import and put them more on that and that and that. Example of it, it's from Middle East, we have example, it's Lebanon. Lebanon, one of the countries which is relied heavily on importing, while they don't have that strong industry, so they were not be able to export and put them in more debt. While when we go to another type of countries, those who are really working professionally in managing between import and export, and where the government playing its role to balance between both, or even prefer more exporting than importing. So here we're gonna see that yes, it helped them a lot, because we can't anymore live in a closed place. All the places are open. So it helped the country if they do the balance, and it helped to improve the local services they have, because as I mentioned, competition is no more locally, competition become internationally.
Okay, I think Dr. Rana have answered your question, and we have two more questions in the chat box. So the first question is, what extent is global poverty a consequence of globalization? To you, Miss.
Okay, when we talk about the global poverty, a consequence of globalization, we can't blame the globalization of like is a reason for poverty. At the end, each country has its own plan for the future. Each country has own way of thinking, okay? So when we see some countries suffering of poverty, it doesn't mean that it's because of the globalization. Actually, it's because they are out of that globalization, because they didn't follow the market properly. I will not talk about the countries because maybe the image is very big. Let's talk about simple products. When we talk about mobile phones as example, you're going to see how Nokia gets out of the market, okay? While other new competitors come to the market. When Nokia gets out of the market, not because they kick them out, not because Samsung or Apple decided, yes, we don't want Nokia anymore. No. It's because they didn't do anything to follow the trend of the market. So same when we talk about poverty, when we want to connect it with globalization, we can't blame the globalization that its consequence or is causing the poverty. We can say those poverty or this who are suffering of it, it's because they have been isolated out of this globalization.
So hope it was answered the question, Lubni. So the next question is how global relationship can be compromised through misunderstanding of another culture.
Actually, this I already somehow talk about it when we talk about different in culture. That's correct. That misunderstanding of the culture is very normal to happen. And this is one of the first things we learn when we move to multinational companies, that there is different culture. As example, I'm as expat, when I come to Malaysia, in the beginning was culture shock for me because I'm coming from Middle East to Southeast Asia, totally different culture. But nowadays, if you see that how globalization helped in reducing the culture shock or reducing that misunderstanding, because as simple as now you are sitting in Malaysia, okay, you decided to travel to any Middle East country. I'm talking about different culture, or maybe travel to Europe. So before you go there, you have access to a lot of videos, a lot of forum talking about this country, talking about what is accepted and not accepted, showing you how people living over there, talking about the culture of that country. So you will be able to know, to understand what is the shift you are doing, or what is the new things you are starting over there. So that cultural shock is no more a problem. When I talk about it, I mentioned due to the flow of the data, due to the possibility of having data and participation of people in creating that data, helped in breaking the language barrier, breaking the issues of culture shock, and make somehow really the world itself like a very small, simple village.
Thank you, Dr. Rana. Hope this answer for Drukashini. And before we move for our gaming sections, feel free to fill up the feedback form, please.
Okay, once again, thank you for your cooperation during this Q&A section. And now we're moving ahead to a photo section, and feel free to on your cameras. Oh yeah, sure, can.
Thank you, thank you. So my question is that it's more okay. So every time I see online talks about globalization, there'll always be talks about moral conflicts, like maybe people saying that companies, private corporations are taking advantage of cheap labor in smaller developed nations, or maybe sometimes international politicians will claim that they will lose jobs in their countries. A few years ago, IBM, International Business Machine, I believe the full name, was being grilled by the local politician about how, for some reason, they have more jobs hired in India than in California, mainly because of they outsource their low-paying jobs to India. So, do you think these will always be the consequences of globalizations, or that countries and or companies can do better to solve it, or it's just things that we should deal with?
Okay, actually, thanks a lot for your question. Outsourcing for cheap labor is a problem since long time, since it started. And this one, I will not say that we can overcome this issue because companies will keep looking for cheap labor, okay? They cannot decide, okay, I will not do any outsourcing for cheap labor now. I will just shift and hire, let's say, as IBM, as you mentioned, and hire everyone from California. Otherwise, if they did like this, their costs are going to jump very high. But what we can take it from another way. Companies are looking for cheap labor because you know the difference between the US dollar and the currency of India. So if you pay maybe quarter of the salary of a clerk or staff in US to one in India, he's going to have a very nice life. So this one is affecting those labor inside the country. How we can little bit try to reduce the effect of that issue is to improve ourselves more. I'm gonna not just take it from globalization point of view, I'm going to take it also from the local thing of view. If you notice, or if you can remember few years back when they start introducing the automated checkout machines in supermarkets. A lot of human rights people start standing and say, no, this is automated checkout machines going to take a place of a lot of those poor people who doesn't know to work anything. They can only do this simple job and so on. So here the answer comes from the government and said, yes, we introduce it not to make those people lose their job. We introduce it to teach the coming generation that no more easy job. You need to be really unique and have very unique skills. No one else have it, or is very limited in supply. So here we can apply it same. Yes, companies can go and do outsourcing for this cheaper labor, but also you can work on yourself and try to, I will not say solve, I would say to overcome that issue. Because also you yourself, if you are like, you see that the companies in your country, they are outsourcing, you yourself, you can be also outsourced for another countries. So here it becomes, as I mentioned, the competition. It's no more because I have the privilege of being in that place, so I'm privileged to have the job. It's more as, yes, you have skills, you can compete, then you can get. You don't have the skills, you can't compete, you can't get. So here it's more into the human, him or herself, how they can get that chance to themselves. Is no more given on a golden plate to anyone.
Understood. Thank you, Miss.